So there was a pretty interesting debate that happened on CNN. Now, CNN actually has a young person who's a Bernie surrogate on there, which is pretty insane. I noticed that TV news never has anybody who's like 26 or 30. They always have like people who are like 89 trillion years old. They're going senile like Chris Matthews or one of those folks, or they're Anderson Cooper coming from the Vanderbilt family, or Chris Cuomo, who's Andrew Cuomo's brother, the governor of New York. I noticed a lot of these people just come from positions of wealth and power, which is sad. But they never even seem to have panelists who are like younger folks or who are just representative of anything like Bernie Sanders or progressive at all. But anyways, so she's there. She's the Alexandra Rojas is the young person who's actually she was a Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign worker, and then also now she's executive director of I believe Justice Democrats. So she gets into a debate with Karen Finney, who is the Bernie bro, Hillary Clinton 2016 spokesperson or whatever. She worked on the 2016 campaign. They get into a debate, a tired debate now, because they've been fed talking points by the Neera Tanden and the whole machine, the Clinton machine, of all about to try to vilify Bernie Sanders in terms of the whole superdelegate stuff. So go check this out. We're going to come back and talk about this.
South Carolina. So, Alexander, let me start with you as a progressive who supports both Warren and Sanders for the nomination. He has seemingly changed his position on this. Why is it okay for him to change his position now, do you think, considering back then he was saying, look, if Hillary Clinton doesn't have the majority, I'm going to make the case to superdelegates. They should support me even though I'm behind.
Well, I mean, the rules were completely different in 2016 in that superdelegates actually were able to vote on that first ballot. That is different from 2020, in which the superdelegates are now able to vote on the second ballot. And so I think that the context, as someone who worked on the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign, from the very beginning, superdelegates had come out from Hillary Clinton. So I think the Bernie Sanders campaign, like other candidates right now, are taking positions where even if it's not a plurality or majority of the delegates, they might also go into a contested convention. That is, you know, the Bernie Sanders was trying to operate in 2016 when there was two people there. So I don't think it's that big of a change. I think it's politicians seizing on moments for the Democratic frontrunner, and you know, it's another moment where it shows his strength.
It's very politically craven. I mean, Senator Sanders is acting like a politician. He is now the frontrunner, so he wants the rules that will work better for him. That's what it feels like. It's so disturbing, too, because having also worked on not just Hillary's campaign, but on the platform committee, I mean, there was so much work done to try to accommodate Senator Sanders, and so many changes were made, ironically, to the caucus system, which ended up being problematic, and specifically this whole change on superdelegates. This is what he wanted. And here it is, and now he's saying, oh, no, I don't want to follow those rules because it's inconvenient for me.
Sure, but
That's
I think a lot of people that I also know that are on the Unity Reform Commission also tried to get to abolish superdelegates. That is Bernie Sanders' position, is to abolish superdelegates because they are not a democratic way of being able to do things. And now the compromise position for that was to have the scenario that we have right now. So I think it's also equally as disingenuous to be able to suggest that he is taking a stance here that's different when he wants to abolish superdelegates.
But can we be honest, going into the convention, it wasn't just that she had more delegates and superdelegates. She had 3 million more votes. So if we were going to go
guess what he did? He decided to campaign with her in 26 different rallies. So I think that he got behind and rallied with Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. You went through this with the Republican convention in 2016.
Yeah, well, we don't have superdelegates. We let the voters decide, and we don't give extra weight to someone because they happen to be a former elected official in the establishment to kind of fix the process. And so for me, as a Republican watching this, I think Senator Sanders is consistent because his consistent messages don't steal this from me.
What do you think?
That's his consistent message both times. Don't have the DNC chair have to resign the night before the convention because it's being stolen from me.
What do you think of it all?
The Trump campaign is doing its best to promote Sanders, and, and Mike's doing that now because they think they can beat Sanders most easily. But, you know, it's all this delegate talk is nice. 500,000 South Carolinians are going to vote tomorrow.
Yep.
The first primary, not a caucus, in a truly diverse state. And let's see what the results are. And let's see whether we're so confident after that Senator Sanders is cruising towards a majority or even a very high plurality in delegates.
Okay, let's do that.
All right, so as you guys saw there was quite the feisty debate. Now, I think Alexandra Rojas could have done a better job there. I think she could have been more prepared with points to use, especially if you're going on CNN and you know that's going to be the issue. I think she could have done a better job of basically explaining what I'm going to explain to you here. But here's a clip I found. This is a clip that I think most people are using for their argument. This is Jake Tapper and Bernie Sanders All right, they are over on CNN here, and this is an interview in which Jake Tapper asks him about the whole superdelegate thing. Now, I'm going to play this on 2-speed, so it only takes about a minute and a half, but I want to play this whole thing for you, and then we're going to talk about this.
Senator, so you're out on the trail every day talking about your goal, which remains to secure a majority of the pledged delegates. Should we assume that means you believe the candidate who has the majority of pledged delegates by the end of this process should be the nominee?
This is what I believe. I believe if we, and look, I am good at arithmetic, and I understand that it is a very, very uphill fight to go from 46% where we are today to 50% in the 9 remaining contests. I got that. But the other point, and we're going to try. California, obviously, is the big race that remains. We think we have a chance to do very well in California and in New Jersey, etc. But what I also believe, it's incumbent upon some of these superdelegates, people who came on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race, to take an objective look at which candidate is stronger. And it's not just polls, Jake. Democrats and progressives win when there is a large voter turnout. Republicans win when people are demoralized and don't come out to vote. Any objective assessment of our campaign versus Clinton's campaign, I think will conclude we have the energy, we have the excitement, we have the young people, we have the working people, we can drive a large voter turnout so that we not only win the White House, but we regain control of the Senate, do well in the House, and win governor's chairs up and down the line.
With all due respect, sir, she has more votes than you, and she has more pledged delegates. She has more pledged delegates than you, and the question is just a simple yes or no. Should the candidate with the most pledged delegates at the end of the process, June 7th, after New Jersey and California, the last contests, should the person with the most pledged delegates be the Democratic nominee?
Well, I think if that was the only criteria, then you get rid of all of the superdelegates, which may not be a bad idea. But you do have superdelegates. You got 700 superdelegates. And I'm not a great fan of superdelegates, but their job is to take an objective look at reality. And I think the reality is that we are the stronger candidate. So we'll see what happens, Jake.
So you actually think, you think it would be okay for the pledged delegates, the majority of Democratic voters, to pick one candidate, and then the superdelegates to actually go with a different candidate? You're not suggesting that.
Well, it's very funny. It's very funny that you asked me that question when you had 400 pledged delegates come on board Clinton's campaign before anyone else was in the race. That's called an anointment process. That's called the establishment talking. That's called the big money interest. This is who we want.
But the process,
we are where we are right now.
And where we are
right now, Jake.
Right.
And where we are is we are fighting to win the pledged delegates. So before I can answer your question, let's see what's going to happen. But if you do have that, if your argument is let's get rid of all the superdelegates, that may not be a bad idea. Well, they are there.
All right, so as you guys see there, basically, you see that Bernie Sanders' response is basically like he's laughing at them because it's like you see Jake Tapper's question like, oh my gosh, do you think that the superdelegates should override the person with the pledged delegates? Meanwhile, the superdelegates have been already announcing who they're going to be voting for, and it's been included in the delegate counts on the news websites and radio stations. And so he's like, oh wow, that's really funny that you're asking that question now when Hillary Clinton already has 400 superdelegates that are pledged to her and there's like 20 going for me. Oh real, how hilarious of you. And so it's so funny to see this, okay? And so this is the real thing, right? You're in a race that's completely rigged against you. The entire DNC from day one was coordinating in favor of Hillary Clinton. They were not a neutral arbiter. Dude, literally, the chair of the DNC was effectively a Hillary Clinton campaign manager, chair, whatever you want to say. And you're telling us that it was legit. So he goes, oh yeah, but she has more votes and pledged delegates than you. Yes, in a rigged election, in which they were doing incredibly rigged things like leaking debate questions, making sure that areas in Bernie pro areas, there are less polling stations, purging voters. And also there's a lot of voter fraud going on. Like I read in California, some counties had like 134% turnout. And it's like, huh? And those were all Hillary Clinton areas. Like, what? Really weird stuff going on in California. A lot of weird stuff. They also, I think, canceled the exit poll in California. And, you know, Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to resign, right? So what you see going on here is basically the entire campaign was rigged, and then you go, what? You would overturn it? Like, hey, bitch, this whole thing was rigged against me. I'm playing by your rules. You want us to play with superdelegates? Fine, bitch, let's play with superdelegates. And then when it's my turn to put my pitch to the superdelegates, now all of a sudden you get all outraged. Real interesting, right? And so doing any of those metrics is bullshit. And I'll tell you why it's bullshit. Because the election was entirely rigged from day one. So when you rig the election from day one, yeah, the vote counts are going to be in favor of Hillary Clinton. You cheated in favor of Hillary Clinton, and then you included the superdelegate count in every single delegate counter on CNN, on radio stations. I remember being in the car, bro, and they're reading off. I remember listening to a radio station. They read off the delegate count. And it includes the superdelegates, and it makes it sound like Hillary Clinton is mopping Bernie Sanders, when really they're like neck and neck. And so, yeah, people are going to be discouraged. They're going to be, dude, I'm telling you, bro, narrative is everything. Momentum is everything. When you win one race, you go to the next, you win the next, like dominoes falling, you know, snowball rolling down a hill, all of that stuff, right? It's all about momentum. And so to act as if these are legit things, like, oh, but the pledged delegates were in favor of Hillary. Yeah, in a rigged election in which the superdelegates had already voted. And that's what Bernie Sanders is saying. You know, they actually hadn't voted yet, but they had announced who they were going to support, and the news outlets were already putting them in. And so Bernie's like, oh, it's really funny that you're saying that now, right? But we have superdelegates, and so I'm playing by your rules. It's like having a system rigged against you, and then you play by their rules and they get mad. It's like, what? I'm playing by your rules, dude. What the fuck do you mean? What do you mean by that? Like, you rig an election, and then you play by their rules. Like, oh, how dare you? What do you mean, dude? I'm playing by your rules. What the hell are you talking about in a rigged election? And it's so hilarious to watch these losers like feign outrage like that. It's like, dude, you rigged the entire election. I'm playing by your rules, and now all of a sudden you're outraged? Get out of here with that nonsense. It's so funny. And then you hear Karen make it all, Karen is definitely getting fed talking points from Neera Tanden and the whole Clinton machine and whatnot, but she makes it all dramatic. So there's actually this really interesting clip that I found. A shout out to a Twitter user by the name of Bernie Watchdog. He definitely deserves it because he randomly found this clip and posted it. Check this one out. This is from a leaked email that CNN themselves covered. Let's check it out.
Camp. And we heard so many times, of course, from Bernie Sanders, it's rigged against me. Here's one of these emails. Why not throw Bernie a bone and reduce the superdelegates in the future? So if we give Bernie this in the convention's rules committee, his people will think they've won something from the party establishment, and it functionally doesn't make any difference anyway.
So as you see there, right there, dude, they were literally... This is an internal email that was dropped from WikiLeaks from that DNC drop. And so obviously what's going on here is they were trying to do this to throw a bone. It was bogus. And also, the Bernie camp was outnumbered. And it is the one thing Alexandra did a good job of, that she did a really good job of was she did a really good job of basically telling her, hey, it's disingenuous to say that Bernie Sanders wrote the rules. He didn't write the rules. He had to compromise, okay? He didn't get what he wanted to do. What he wanted to do was abolish superdelegates. He didn't want the rules now. He wanted to abolish them. He had to compromise, and thank God he did, because imagine this race if he didn't compromise. Imagine this race if he hadn't compromised. Imagine what we'd be dealing with right now, right? Right? So thank God he compromised. But, yeah, that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted to abolish superdelegates, and as Nomiki Khan says, they were outnumbered by a long shot. And the DNC, when it turned over, barely had any Bernie Sanders folks either. And I love at the tail end of the segment, and I've seen this from Soledad O'Brien, the biggest loser on the planet, next to Neera Tanden, although she might even be a bigger loser. They're now starting to just erase Nevada's diverse population, because Nevada's known as, in the race, it's like the first diverse state. It's the test, right? Bernie demolishes in Nevada, just forget it's a diverse state. Forget about all the Hispanic voters there. Just forget about it. Just forget it all. Just don't pretend like they don't exist. And so they will erase the existence of people of color whenever it benefits them. They don't give a fuck about people of color. All right, they just want to push their garbage agenda. And I think Soledad O'Brien is married to a rich Wall Street executive, so that's why she's one of those losers. But I love how the narrative changes. Oh, we're finally going to get to a diverse state. Really? Nevada's not a diverse state? You were literally just talking about how that's going to be the test for a diverse state. What happened? What changed? What happened? So, man, this election is starting to kill me, dude.